This is the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
Trying to get you going on a Wednesday morning. Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike Golic Jr., Trey Wingo here. First and foremost, for those of you that lived in the Northeast, I'm glad everybody, hopefully everybody was okay. We had some wicked storms come through yesterday.
Yeah, where we both live, Trey and IU in the same city, Mike next to us, we got a lot of rain. We didn't get some of the damage like our good friend Rebecca Lobo.
Oh my gosh, she pulled through that stuff, like golf ball size hail.
Huge hail,
down.
And I saw a couple of trees on houses and trees on power lines in some of the other cities. It was bad. So hopefully everybody safe and sound. Mike, I know Allie, who's on our show working social media and the producer for your show. Allie was in the basement with no power and emailing out show notes.
We send the email note out every night with the list of topics and stories and articles that we might get to during the course of the show. And Allie sent with it attached to her note said, "I'm sending this out early as I sit in my basement on my phone with no power in the dark." It was one of the sadder pre-show notes I had ever seen.
Allie, standing O, show eraser, getting things done.
Good job out of you.
So we got a lot to get to. We've got the second game of the Western Conference Finals tonight. Mm-hmm. We will have a deep dive into what went on between the Celtics and the Cavaliers last night.
Yeah.
Plus, we will answer the burning question of the day: Yanni or Laurel?
That is the burning question. It is unreal, the things that take over social media that are completely and utterly meaningless.
And useless.
It's the best version of social media. I would rather have that than the social media divided on political or racial or social lines. I want the social media that's tearing each other apart over something that we will forget about probably in a matter of days.
This is basically the audio version of, what was it, the blue and what color?
Blue or gold.
Blue or gold dress that went on, of which I saw blue and only blue entire time.
Only saw blue.
So, but this is the audio version that we'll get to as well, because it is setting social media on fire.
Well, as I've always said about Twitter outrage is hilarious because they get so angry until they see something else the next day that makes them more angry. They forgot about what they were angry about.
That's exactly right.
So that's what it is.
Yeah.
We'll get into all of that. Again, we got some great guests coming up, and we're going to play Bretymology.
Yes, we are.
We're going to play Bretymology a little bit later on today because it's been 24 hours since Brett took over the show, so he's a researcher looking forward to reclaiming his rightful role.
Holy smokes, does he want to get back on the air again?
Yes, he does. We've got Amin Elhassan coming up a little later on. Jackie McMullen, our fine NBA analyst, will join us as well. Plus, we'll have our newest teammate a little bit later, John Fox.
Yes, we will. How about
former
that?
Head coach of the Carolina Panthers, Denver Broncos, and Chicago Bears. Newest member of our NFL team will join us a little bit later. But let's get starting with what's trending. And what's trending is the Celtics at home. They're good. The Celtics outscored the Cavs by 20 in the second half, and they now have a 2-0 lead in the Eastern Conference Finals, despite a 40-point triple-double game from LeBron James.
Yeah, he goes 42, 10, and 12 in this one, and came out of the gates just like we thought he would. 21 points in the first quarter. Nobody shocked at that at all. What was, Mike, was getting to halftime, they had that double-digit lead, and it got down to 7. You started thinking, okay, and we'll talk about LeBron got stung, got hit in the jaw, and said it was a neck strain. I think there's more than a few people think it was something different than that. But then
which we will get into.
Yes, we will. But then the bottom line is how you come out in the third quarter and in that second half. Cleveland was absolutely garbage in the second quarter, not only with their shots, but it seemed like with the second half. But with their hustle as well in closing out shots. We have all kind of numbers to go with that to show all the open shots and uncontested shots Boston had. But what a difference of a team that was right in position to get a split on the road and just absolutely dropped it in the second half.
It was embarrassing.
Yeah.
It was an embarrassing level of effort, and I usually don't reserve that level of vitriol here because people lob this kind of stuff at pro athletes all the time, say they're only in it for the money, they don't care about this, and we've been in enough locker rooms collectively to see how much guys usually care. Last night on the court, you could visually see a lot of guys that seemed apathetic, that seemed lethargic, and it was honestly embarrassing to watch.
Let me put it this way. In watching a little bit of that second half, I was reminded of myself over the weekend, Saturday, playing in our member tournament when it was 38 degrees and raining. Not a lot of want-to out of me Saturday
Didn't want to
morning.
be there, huh?
Not a lot of want-to out of me Saturday morning, and it certainly didn't seem like there was a lot of... I think the Cavs know who they are, and they know who the Celtics are. And I think that sometimes that realization can slap you across the face like a fish. And suddenly you're like, well, damn it. And it certainly seemed like that was sort of the way it sort of went for the Cavs in the second half. We'll get into more of that as we continue, but as we go on with what's trending, the Rockets hope to avoid what just happened to the Celtics, or to the Cavs, but it would be much worse because if they go down 2-0, they would lose the first two games of the Western Conference Finals at home.
That's exactly right. And Trey, you can get it ready because I am going to use a second spectrum stat.
Yeah, let's go. I'm ready.
Do it. And you wonder if this will change because going into this, we knew what it was about. We knew what Houston did. They were an isolation team, and certainly Golden State moves the ball around incredibly well. But, I mean, almost overboard. In that first game, the Knicks had 45 isolations, which was more than double the average of the regular season. And James Harden had 26 isolations, the most he's had in any game this season. So you really wonder, thank you very much, if that does have to change some. If, okay, we know you're that kind of team, but did you go a little overboard with that? And does that need to change in game two?
You can understand maybe where that comes from because James Harden's a guy that we talk about. The narrative around him is that he has a lot to prove on this big stage, that he's got to go out there and show that the disappearing act we saw last year was not who he is at his core, but that seemed to come at the expense of a better version of this team. They've got to hope for that. I don't believe that's coming. And we've seen now what Golden State looks like when they're locked in and care. Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, when they've been on the team together, have lost 2 collective playoff games now. I think that trend's going to continue. This series, I think, could be a sweep. I think it's more likely we see a sweep in the Western Conference than the Eastern Conference.
Isn't that amazing?
Which is ridiculous if you think about how well the Rockets have played.
And we've been
this year.
waiting for this matchup saying this is the finals, and our finals looks like we're going to get, I think, what a lot of people think could be a decent one the way Boston is playing right now. We'll have to wait and see.
And again, you just sort of glossed over that, but I think that can't be overstated. We have to expect now that the Rockets are going to win 4 of the next 6 games against the Warriors, and they have lost 2 postseason games with those two guys playing together.
18-2.
Again, let me just say.
Bad math for you if you're a Houston Rocket fan.
Good luck. And that's not even a second spectrum stat. That's just like first spectrum math. More than anything else. Speaking of the NBA, barring a trade, the Phoenix Suns will have the first pick in the NBA draft for the first time in franchise history. They did so by becoming the 4th straight team to win the lottery, the NBA draft lottery, entering with the best odds.
How about they got it? So it's happened yet again, but it was the Kings who were the real winners last night. They landed the number 2 pick after entering the lottery with just a 5.3% chance of doing that. Yeah. So they end up with the number 2 pick, and so, I mean, really, the draft, the lower part of it certainly kind of went the way we were supposed to go. And a lot of people are going to point right to the Cavaliers picking a number 8. Wait a minute, you traded Kyrie Irving, worked through all these trades after you made that trade, and you got that Brooklyn pick, and it was number 8. And you had Kyrie on the hook for 2 more years. You were going to be some revisionist history going on right now.
Yep, no, as we continue to grade out that trade, the grades seem to get lower and lower and lower despite more homework getting turned in. And we heard Jay Billis and plenty of our analysts last night, Woj up there, talking about the depth of this draft, but sitting down there at 8 for what you gave up doesn't feel like you're going to get the return, especially when you think they might have to compensate for the loss of their best player in franchise history.
That would be LeBron James, who suddenly, I wonder if that cold fish slapped him across the face as well when he realized, okay, this is the way it's going to be going forward.
So how odd was it, though, with the last 3 teams standing last night? It was Sacramento, it was Phoenix, and it was Atlanta.
Yeah.
And for Sacramento, it was De'Aaron Fox, and for Atlanta, or for Phoenix, it was Josh Jackson, and for Atlanta,
Jamie Gertz,
the actress Jamie Gertz. How wild was that?
Yeah, one of these things is not like the other in that setting.
Yeah, I was flicking on, I'm like, is that who I think it is? Is that Jamie Gertz from all those classic 80s movies with Kevin Bacon?
Yep, maybe she can hoop.
Who knows?
Maybe she can hoop. Maybe she's got game. I'm not willing to rule that out.
Then I had to Google. I'm like, okay, I understand why she's there. Married to one of the owners of the Hawks,
Atlanta Hawks. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I guess it makes sense. I'm like, I was trying to put this together. In what scenario, if she wasn't married to the owner of the Hawks, would she be there? What would be the possible impetus? And then I was like, she has to be married to somebody.
Yeah,
so I Google, I got it now.
She's a great pick and roll player, too.
But by the way, in case we didn't mention it, Suns 1, Sacramento 2, Hawks 3, Memphis 4, Dallas 5, Orlando 6, Chicago 7, Cleveland 8, Knicks 9, and the 76ers via the Lakers 10.
Yeah, and I think the big losers there are both the Knicks and Cleveland.
Although,
in the latest mock draft, the first mock draft out there, because, we're going to have
that's what we do. We'll have a lot of these.
Michael Porter at 8. That's actually an interesting
selection.
selection.
Went to Cleveland? Yeah.
That's actually a very interesting selection.
The more interesting thing will be is if he goes to Cleveland, is LeBron going to be in Cleveland?
That may
be a teammate with him.
That's the most important discussion. The Knicks, by the way, you'd hope they would have some sort of chance, but they just... Nothing.
No.
They're stuck with number 9. All right, meanwhile, on the ice, the Lightning took Game 3 from the Capitals and improved to 4-1 on the road this season, scoring 2 power play goals to tie the franchise record for consecutive playoff games, 8 with at least 1 power play goal.
Understand where these playoffs have gone, gang. Home teams are now 33 and 39 in the playoffs.
Home ice, what?
The only year in the post-1968 expansion era where home teams had a worse win percentage was 2012. They were 39 and 47. The away team has won every game in this series so far, so who knows where this thing is going. It is absolutely amazing. You get Game 3 tonight, Jets in Vegas against the Golden Knights, but man, home ice means nothing right now.
Caps fans have to feel like every superstitious fan at a party where you leave the room and something good starts happening for your team. So you stay out of the room in hopes that your good juju will pollute that environment. And then the minute you come back in, bad things start to happen again. That is the true definition of the life of a Capitals fan in the Alexander Ovechkin era.
Now, they should have expected it, though. They're now 1-8 all-time in Game 3s when they're up 2-0. So basically, they just kind of show up, but don't really show up.
Right. And you'd think if it was any time that this was going to flip, this postseason has felt a little different for the Capitals, and they won the first 2 in Tampa Bay. Hey, guys, we're back on our ice. Let's slam the door, go up 3-0, and let's just make sure it happened. And then, no, we are who we are. We're 1-8, went up 2-0.
Spin zone. They're in the Western, the conference finals for the first time, the Eastern Conference Finals. They want to make it feel more like home.
Yeah. There you go. Nice try. By the way, that 1-8 record, when leading 2-0 in a best of 7, is the worst such record in NHL history. Minimum of 3 games. And Caps fans everywhere are like, yeah, we know. Thanks for sharing. Well, it has been a rough week for the Mariners and second baseman Robinson Cano, who was placed on the DL with a broken hand on Monday before being suspended for 80 games on Tuesday for violating the Major League Baseball's joint drug agreement. Cano had played the most games in Major League Baseball since he entered the league in 2005. Has 305 home runs, second baseman in Major League history behind only Jeff Kent, but he's going to be gone for a long time.
80 games is a rough stretch, but you clearly see, and this is one thing I think Major League Baseball does better than every other league, mainly really going up against the NFL. It's not like we see a ton of suspensions for these kind of violations handed out in the NBA, but they do it discreetly. Like the appeal for this happened before the season going on and then finally got laid out when it came to this. And Robinson Cano stands up, he takes his medicine, but he also makes it very clear in this why he's doing it. Our own Pedro Gomez called him out pretty hard.
We'll get more into this one. It wasn't a PED. It was a diuretic. It was a masking agent. We'll explain it more. Bottom line, though, is on the DL, and he'll serve it while he's on the DL. And also, he's going to lose $12 million, basically. He makes $24 million in 80 games, just right at around half, at 12 mil going bye-bye, never going into your pocket, I should say, in the first place. That is a tough road. And he just dropped it and said, let's start serving it. Let's do it.
As Jerry Seinfeld once said, that's a big matzo ball.
Yeah, there's a lot more to get into with that one. We'll jump into.
And just real quickly so people understand, yes, he tested positive for a masking agent.
Right.
But the way it's set up, and Major League Baseball does a great job with this, if you test positive for a masking agent, then they have to go back and prove that you use the masking agent to hide a PED, or performance enhancer.
Right.
So basically, yes, he got popped for a masking agent, but the way the process works, they went and showed him exactly why you did this to cover this up. So technically, he tested positive for a masking agent, but in the process that Major League Baseball used, he was really using PED.
Right, because he did appeal this. Yes, he was going through the appeal, and then the league showed him, hey, we got this info on you, and he said, okay,
damn it.
no more appeal.
And the way he's responded is trying to make sure that you don't read into that second part and that you only think about all the nice things he says about baseball.
Not PEDs, he's saying.
Except in the fact, in this case, it absolutely was. All right, Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance. Commercial insurance through Progressive protects your business and your dream. Choose from over 30 coverage options at progressivecommercial.com. And if we're actually being progressive and forward-thinking, let's be clear about one thing. Through 2 games of the Eastern Conference Finals, this much is sure. The Celtics are younger, faster, stronger, and even a little bit tougher right now than this version of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that's something that our analyst Jeff Van Gundy could easily spot after watching and dissecting Game 2.
They've always been the better team. They're more talented. They're quicker, faster, more depth, more range shooting from more different people. So to me, they just have a superior talent base after you get past James, and then they also have a superior toughness right now and a togetherness. That was an outstanding response to the onslaught that they faced to start the game from James.
And real quickly, that onslaught was LeBron in the first quarter, scoring 21 of the team's 27 points. He was clearly in the zone, brought to you by AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. So he was in the zone for the first quarter.
Right. But
in the second half, the Celtics just said, enough, we're not losing this.
Well, I mean, what we heard there, we all knew. Boston has the better team, all-around team, but it's always, well, they don't have LeBron, and LeBron was trying to be in his 8th straight finals. You know, he's always going to be the team coming out of the East. Even if he didn't have a great team around him, he always found a way to win. So he always going to get the benefit of the doubt. And it does look like it's going to end this year because the help he's getting, even when it hasn't been great, he's found a way to pull them through, but it's just not going to happen. This Boston team is just too many good players. Too many good and young players and more athletic players. And I know you keep apologizing to Al Horford because he's playing well and you had him the last pick of the All-Star when they were.
You're a horrible person.
Which he probably was, but he has turned it on for the postseason.
He absolutely has. But so saying Boston is better than Cleveland, people are going to say, well, wait a minute, but everybody's picking Cleveland. Yes, we're doing it because of LeBron James. And we've done so, and he's proven it every year that he's the team he's going to lead the team coming out of the East, but just not enough help here outside of Kevin Love, who had 22 points, 15 rebounds. There's just nothing from anybody else. Of the 4 new players, 1 didn't play in Jordan Clarkson, and between the other 3, there was 5 points. 5 points. I mean, it's just not going to get it done.
And the starting backcourt of George Hill and J.R. Smith combined for 3 points. Yep. Tristan Thompson, I'll give him some credit, especially to start the game, was a great catalyst for them. A lot of energy, going to work on the offensive glass, providing some spark when we've seen him inserted into the starting lineup. But it was a tale of 2 halves for this team who couldn't hit the broadside of a barn if LeBron James wasn't scoring or setting up the shot.
Hey, look, it just goes down to depth, okay? LeBron got his. We all knew. What did we say the over-under at? 38 yesterday?
35,
yeah. He eclipsed that by 7. He got 42. He had a triple-double. And
hammer the over.
Hammer the over. He's learning, folks. Kevin Love got his at 22 points. But after that, you had to get a couple of threes from Kyle Korver to have somebody else in double digits. Every single starter for the Boston Celtics had double digits, and Marcus Smart had double digits. So they had 6 players in double digits. I don't know if the Cleveland Cavaliers can win any game against the Celtics if they're going to get 6 players with double digits.
Well, and one of the reasons they do, we start now looking at effort, we're looking at hustle, we're looking at toughness. In the second half, the Celtics contested 92% of Cleveland shots. 92%. The Cavaliers contested just 58% of the Celtics shots, leaving them 20 open looks. So you're not closing out on the shooter. They're getting open looks. I mean, what is that? I mean, if anybody on the team, including the coach, has to mention the word toughness or hustle, you should be embarrassed. You should be embarrassed at this point of what you're playing for, that term or word would even be used.
But that's who the Cavaliers have been defensively all year. So I had to stop myself from getting that hot and bothered about that side of it because that's who they are. They're the basketball for dummies. We just got to score more points than them. Yeah. They weren't able to score more points off shots in the first half, but they at least shot better, especially when LeBron was creating. The difference was, and we'll talk about the LeBron injury and the nature of how people received it, but the bottom line is he was different in the second half. And to start that fourth quarter, he was not attacking, he was not creating, and when the Cavaliers' other guys were forced to try and create for themselves or create for that offense, they peed down their legs, and it was god-awful to watch.
Yeah, there's 2 things we'll get into. We'll get into what really went on with LeBron and how it's perceived differently in this sport than perhaps in another sport. And what would have happened in that other said sport. And we'll get into what you were talking about with toughness because Ty Lue and others mentioned it and saw it. It was pretty easy. But just know this. history says this series is over. The Boston Celtics are 37-0 in franchise history when they go up 2-0 in a best-of-7 series. And, oh, by the way, they have yet to lose a game at home this postseason.
Golic
and Wingo.
And Wingo.
Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr. Glad you're with us and hope you're still able to eat your breakfast. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our phone guest joined us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Let's get to some Straight Talk now, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. So in watching the first half of that game, I'm like, all right, this is exactly what I expected. The Cavs are going to come out. LeBron's going to be dominant. I think they're going to find a way to maybe squeak out this thing and go back tied at 1. And then they played the second half. Well, let me amend that. Then the Celtics played the second half. The second half being played by the Cavaliers, kind of debatable. And this is what Ty Lue said about the way things went down, the Cavs head coach, in the second half.
We got to be tougher. I think they're playing tougher than we are. We see that. They're being physical. They're gooning the game up, and we got to do the same thing. So we got to be tougher mentally and physically.
When your own coach basically says we've got to be tougher mentally and physically, he's basically saying what? Try harder.
Let me tell you, as any kind of professional athlete, I don't care the sport. When you're challenged on that, and when you're called out on that by your coach, I mean, there are people that could sit out and analyze and say it, but when it's within your own locker room, and you know what, player, you know it. You know when you're not closing out. You know when you're not hustling. And I know Cleveland's not known for great defensive scrappiness like that. But still, there's the personal pride of taking care of your business on defense, which we talk a lot about with effort. And to see 20 uncontested shots, 20 wide open shots, the word I use is embarrassing. Even though, as I said, I know they're not known for it. But man, I mean, that is a tough look in the mirror is what that is.
Well, you see the difference in how it allows you to anchor, because Boston wasn't shooting great in the first half, but they were getting good looks, and you said, all right, maybe they'll be able to turn this around in the second half. And how did they turn it around? They put the clamps on defense. They said, all right, I can't control the shots not going in, but I can control theirs not going in if I try hard enough. And that's what the Cavaliers are never able to do. They can't turn defense into offense. They have to just thrive on offense. And so if the defense starts to go over to the offensive side for them, it's an overwhelming negative. And that's what you saw last night. The epitome of what the Cavs effort was that J.R. Smith push on Al Horford.
Right.
That was the Cavs defensive effort last night. It was lackluster, it was cheap, and it was petty.
It was flagrant. Yeah. And then, he gets in the pushing match, and there's a double technical. Was it Marcus Smart?
Yeah.
And he got the technicals, but it was JR who got the flagrant on that. You're right about how he played that. And as I said, as a professional athlete or any athlete, to hear those words said about you within your own locker room, and as I said, when you look in the mirror, you know it. That's a tough call.
Well, listen, it was pretty obvious to everybody. What's interesting here is, Junior, you brought this up. What's been the problem with the Cavs all season? All during the regular season, it was their defense, right? I mean, they would score occasionally, they'd find ways to win, but their defensive problems have been there all season long. So do we think they're magically going to be fixed as we go forward by a little extra hustle into Game 3?
No, and it wasn't like they played stellar defense in the series against Toronto, but they did have more energy on that end of the floor, and that came from the confidence of knowing they were better than that team. And to your point, with all the fish slapping, there seems to be a lack of confidence with the reality that they understand they're not a better team, that they've got a really well-coached outfit on the other side, and that for the guys that aren't named LeBron James, when they're trying to initiate and all of a sudden Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum or Marcus Smart are putting that length and athleticism in front of them, it's frustrating these guys, and it's forcing them into bad turnovers and bad shot selection and just overall cruddy offense.
Yeah, when the other guys had to try and ignite something when it wasn't LeBron, it was a struggle. The spark in that second quarter was Kyle Korver. Ended up, and the stat came out, he goes in double digits, they don't lose. Right. He won double digits.
They
got
lost.
11 points. And he had him by halftime and didn't score in the second half, and they lost. Yeah, they just can't create enough without LeBron being the creator.
It was interesting, though, that Saturday Night Live skit we played that didn't air about the other Cavs and how they play hot potato offense. Like we play hot potato, LeBron passes the ball, we pass it right back. In watching Korver shoot some of those threes, I felt like he thought the ball was on fire.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen a guy catch the ball and shoot it faster than Korver a couple of those times. I mean, it was barely on his fingertips, and it went down.
And it went in. He shot 4 of 8.
It was crazy how quickly he got that shot up and down. But you're right. They didn't have anything. And if you don't believe Ty Lue, You take a listen to Chauncey Billups, who was Mr. Big Shot in his career. He knows exactly what it takes to win a championship, and he saw the exact same damn thing.
Coach shouldn't have to try to ramp you up and make you compete harder and play harder. You can't control if shots are going down, but you can always control your effort, right? So it always read through the lines when I hear coaches say, we need to be tougher. We need to, our mentality needs to be, we need to hang our hat on the defensive end and impose our will. Like, that's something that's in you or it's not.
I completely agree. You can break down X's and O's. Yep. You can break down fundamentals. You can break down footwork. You can break down switching. You can break down coming off screens. You can break down all of that stuff. But and players know it before anybody else. If you can't do some of that stuff, what you can do is you can hustle. You could dive. You could make a move. You could sprint to something. You could make up for it with effort. That's what a lot of defense can be, with want to. And, man, when you don't get that, especially when you lack in the other parts of it, well, it shows just like last night.
Yeah, that was just not fun to watch, especially after that Houston Rockets and Warriors first half where we're all like, this is basketball. This is what it's supposed to look like. I watched the fourth quarter of that game where even the Celtics weren't playing great to start the fourth, and I was like, we have to watch this side by side, that triumph in the world of basketball, this dreck.
It's horrible.
Listen, once you've been fish slapped, it's hard to come back.
There you go.
A lot of fish slapping. Have you ever been slapped with a fish?
Well, it's a video game that my son played years ago. It was pretty funny. He got slapped in the face with a fish. So we always.
But have you ever been slapped in the face with a fish?
But I did see somebody actually pick up a dead fish in the river and throw it and hit somebody in the face.
There you go.
So that's
so you've seen someone get slapped in the face.
It's the ultimate sign of disrespect when someone slaps you across the face with a fish.
All right.
And we'll see if the Cavs can get back from being fish slapped. And that is Straight Talk, by the way. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Okay, now we get to the urbane, the silly, the ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's the audio version of blue dress, gold dress, white dress, whatever. Yanni or Laurel. When I first saw this out there on Twitter, I'm like, this has to be a joke. I don't understand how anybody can hear anything but the other than one thing. If you haven't been on Twitter, or if you haven't been doing any of this, here is the sound. And the question is, what do you hear? Do you hear the word Yanni, or do you hear the word Laurel?
Laurel, Laurel, Laurel.
See, now I hear Laurel. Nothing but Laurel.
Laurel.
You guys are high. There is no way.
That has nothing to do with what we're hearing.
Separate issue.
Yeah.
You guys must have been fish slapped because there is not an L in there. It's Yanni, Yanni,
See,
Yanni.
This goes against...
Laurel.
It's completely Laurel.
It's completely Yanni.
And which goes against what we thought might be going on, that everybody in the same room maybe hears the same thing. So, play it again.
Laurel, Laurel, Laurel.
All right, so the three of us...
I'm literally trying as hard as I can to hear Laurel. I don't hear a thing.
So the three of us are in this room. You hear Yanni. I hear Laurel. Mike, you hear Laurel.
I hear Laurel.
Brett, what do you hear?
I hear Laurel.
You hear Laurel. Devin.
Laurel.
Cliff.
I hear Laurel, and Trey's lying.
Yes! I'm not lying. I'm not lying.
Okay, let me go through everybody else first. Before
we all hear Laurel.
Everybody hears Laurel.
Yeah.
You're the only one who hears Yanni.
I don't know how you can hear anything but Yanni.
Well, we all... I'm just saying.
Laurel, Laurel.
We all hear Laurel.
The's not an L in there.
Well,
it starts yeah. It doesn't say love.
We didn't hear it because there wasn't a wake and bake for the show for us.
See, here's the amazing
Laurel
thing about this is people, like we're doing here, and a lot of it joking around, people out there like getting mad at other people for thinking they don't hear and they think they're lying and stuff. I mean, I don't know what the reason is. I mean, it's the same reason we looked at the dress and some thought it was blue, some thought it was gold. I mean, I'm not sitting here getting mad because you hear Yanni. I don't care, but you're calling us all high because
no, they're calling me liars.
I'm sitting here and getting mad. It's wrong. It's wrong. It's Team Laurel.
There has to be a reason. That's what I want to know. See,
superior intellect.
I want to say.
No.
What's printed?
No. This is
there's an article printed. It's science. I printed for you.
I'm not reading that.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to read that. Why would I want to read that?
We want the answers. It's in the article.
What is this, school?
It's acoustics.
It's a second spectrum stat.
Yeah!
This is a classic contrarian play by Wingo.
The
acoustics
secret
in a
is
room?
frequency. I have never been a contrarian in my life, nor will I ever be.
No, you're starting now.
The secret is frequency. The acoustic information that makes us hear Yanni is higher frequency than the acoustic information that makes us hear Laurel. Some of the variations may be due to the audio system playing the sound, but also the mechanics of your ears and what you're expecting to hear.
Ah, Okay.
I heard higher frequency hearing is associated with lower intelligence, so this makes a lot of sense.
Well, bring out that IQ test and we'll put that to bed.
Yes, we're going to do that here. But it is amazing. Everybody.
Okay, here
here's
we
Laurel
also called on
you.
We also called on Bharath Chandrakrasan,
okay, good
a professor in the Department of Communications and Science at the University of Texas. He told us that half his lab hears Yanny and half his lab hears Laurel. But he also blames the files noise for the confusion. It's a little bit noisy, so that itself causes perception to be a little more ambiguous. Because it's noisy, your brain is filled with what it thinks it should be.
Well, see, it has to be stuff that I know I don't understand, because the first two tweets I got sent to me were people heard Yanny.
Yeah.
Okay? When I did it on my phone yesterday, sitting at home, I heard Laurel. When you did it, Mike, this morning on First and Last, I heard Yanny. Now I hear Laurel coming out, so I don't know what the hell's going on.
Laurel.
Well, I know what's going on.
There's not an L in there.
There's an L right at the beginning and right at the end because Laurel spelled
there's
two
actually
L's.
two L's. There's not one L.
No,
There's
two L's, and they're the losers that you guys are for hearing Yanny. That's you're hanging the.
Here's what I don't understand. Why do you get yell at us?
I'm not mad at you guys at all.
No,
I am mad at Cliff.
I would be mad at Cliff. He called you a liar.
Yeah.
Cliff, for crying out loud!
Yeah. If the guy calling me a liar is the guy who wanted to fire Brett Brown and get rid of Jay Wright at Villanova, I feel like I'm on pretty good ground.
That's true.
Still sounds like a decent idea the more you say it.
One more time.
Cliff, for crying out loud!
Get out of here.
Golic.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night. Yeah. No doubt about it.
And Wingo.
What a day, what a show, what a time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Golic Wingo podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Everyone in the neighborhood knew about Bobby. Bobby, the basketball boy, they called him. Bobby wanted to go pro someday, so he was always out in the driveway shooting hoops. But one day, his mom came out and told him,
"Hey, your wife wants you to take out the trash?"
His mom was visiting, and Bobby was a grown man. He had kind of missed his window. Plus, no one had ever seen him actually make a basket. But on the other hand, Bobby had heard how Geico could save him money on car insurance, so he switched and saved. So it was all good.
It's the game show segment that's captivating a nation.
The origin is Latin. It has been sort of corrupted over time.
Like this show.
Making everyone that hears it smarter.
In the 1800s, English authors were likely to partake in opium den activities.
Now, with your host, researcher Brett.
Take a guess where that came from. Brett's got your answer.
It's Bretymology.
Here are the categories. Words and their meanings. That's straightforward.
Sports Center brought to you by Dell. May is Small Business Month, and thank you. And Dell wants to say basically thank you to all the hard work everybody's doing out there. And Dell is offering now up to 40% off select PCs with the 8th Gen Intel Core processors. What you need to do is call 877-BUY-DELL to speak with a small business technology advisor today. That's 877-BUY-DELL.
All right, here it is. Golic and Wingo. Time for Bretymology, brought to you by Discover Card, who will match all the cash back new card members earn at the end of the first year. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply. Again, researcher Brett going to come up with a phrase. We decide what the meaning is. Official standings, I'm 15 out of 24.
Right.
You're 12 out of 24. Junior is 4 for 8, and Jeff Saturday, the one time he played, was 1 for 4.
Okay.
Brett, are you ready? By the way, you look a little dressed up today.
Yeah, you gotta, when fame gets to you.
Okay. All right.
Rise yourself to the occasion.
Here we go. What's the first one?
First one, the bee's knees.
The bee's knees.
Bee's knees.
Very high quality. Is it from the wife of melitologist H.E. Hilton? She was an author named Carol Hilton. She wrote a children's story about his work in 1924 entitled The Bee's Knees, which was a reference to bees carrying pollen on their legs. Ironically, it was her story that colored most Americans' knowledge of bees for decades, and the phrases stood the test of time. Or did bees' knees originally have no meaning at all? It was just a rhyme that people decided to say, and it didn't pick up any positive meaning until it was appropriated by flapper culture in the 1920s.
I am absolutely positively going with number 2.
Yeah, look, that's what I associated with the 1920s and the flappers. I'm also going number 2.
Deuce! The flappers are correct.
Yeah! Yeah, there we go. All right, off and running.
Your second phrase, nose to the grindstone.
Okay.
Yes.
In medieval grist mills, millers would grind flour between two grindstones. If the stones were too far apart, the flour wouldn't be ground finely enough, and if they were too close together, the flour would burn. Master millers would get their noses close enough to the grindstone to smell the flour as it was grinding, so they would know if it was close to burning.
That's a great definition.
If you made that one up, kudos to you, sir.
Or blacksmiths in the Middle Ages used a grindstone to sharpen blades, and when they were really focused, they would get very close to the grindstone. There is an implication that having your nose to the grindstone can wear you out, and that's because if your nose actually touches the stone, it'll really mess up your nose.
Wow. 2 quality definitions.
One of those you made up. I'm going with 1. I'm going with 1.
It sounds great, and just because I need to catch you, I'll differ, and I'll go with 2.
The blacksmiths, number 2.
Yes! Oh! Yes! Yes!
Dang it!
Yes! Zero knowledge. I just did it trying to catch up with you.
All right, what's the next one?
Devil's Advocate.
Oh, that's a De Niro movie. No, it's Al Pacino movie. Al Pacino movie.
From the Latin, Diaboli Advocatus. This was an unofficial position.
Wait, say that again?
Diaboli Advocatus. This was an unofficial position appointed in the 1500s by Pope Sixtus V.
Sixtus V?
Yes.
Sure.
When someone was nominated for beatification or canonization, the devil's advocate was tasked with stating the arguments against that candidate. Or from the book The Shepherd of Hermas, an early Christian document published around 150 A.D., the two angels overlooked the man in the story, one of righteousness and one of iniquity. Later adaptations of the story referred to those angels as the guardian angel and the devil's advocate, the first version of the angel and devil on your shoulder.
All I can think of in that is the Animal House
Animal
scene.
House, without question. And just because I thought, what are you going?
I'm going 1.
Oh, I'm going 2.
I'm going 1.
The Pope.
Yeah! Who's the smart guy now? There you go. 2 out of 3. Let's go.
Shoot.
All right, we got about a minute and a half.
One more.
Here we go.
Final phrase, slush fund.
Slush fund.
Ooh.
Or
in the British Navy, slush was another word for the leftover fat from the meat cooked on the ship. The sailors kept the fat in barrels, and they would sell it when they got to port, giving them extra money to spend, but not necessarily in a nefarious sense.
Going to the ocean.
Or slush and sludge were used interchangeably in the 1800s, and the phrase slush fund was first used to denote dirty money when the New York Times accused John Wanamaker of funneling money illegally to Benjamin Harrison's presidential campaign, which defeated the incumbent Grover Cleveland in 1888, despite Cleveland winning the popular vote. The sum in question was $400,000, the equivalent of $10 million today, and Wanamaker was then appointed the Postmaster General.
I love the first definition. Yeah. Absolutely love it, but it's number 2.
I'm going number 1 just to be a contrarian.
2. It's the fat.
Oh. Yeah! 3 out of 4, baby!
I got smoked.
Woohoo! There you go. Can we update those stats for me, please?
That slush fund is fantastic. I love that one.
But the fact that you went through that much detail to make that one up is what makes it great. All right, I'm 18 for 28. You're 14 for 28. Junior, we gave him the collar because he wasn't here. And Jeff Saturday remains 1 for 4. By the way, Jeff Saturday, he should never play again. He'll just always be 1 for 4.
Golic and Wingo.
It was all sort of one big giant Jell-O mold. It's very interesting where that went.
ESPN NBA front office insider Amin Elhassan is here with us, and Golic and Wingo presented by 1-800-Flowers.com. Life special events call for a beautiful bouquet from 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, when you order a dozen Gabura daisies for only $29.99, you get a free vase. For details, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. So I guess the question becomes, should we be sending flowers to the Cavs saying, hey, it was a good run, but I think we all know how this is going?
Well, I mean, if you're LeBron James of the Cleveland Cavaliers, you say, wait, what happened? They won 2 at home. Now we get to play at home.
A series never starts until someone loses on their home
and
court.
Milwaukee's still waiting for their series to start, by the way.
They're
like, hey, guys, no one's won on our home floor. No, it didn't look good. It looked good for a while, but, Boston's defense turned up to an intensity yesterday that You know, there was plays. I was sitting with the jump crew, and we watched Terry Rozier get screened and then rescreened and then rescreened again. He fought over every single one of them and harassed the ball handler. You know, when you have guys young and athletic and willing to put in the work like that, it can be tiring. And I thought Cleveland really did not take advantage of getting easier baskets with LeBron either being off ball or in the post, or LeBron making passes to guys cutting. They had a lot of dribbling around, and it spent energy. You could tell by the end LeBron was so gassed. That's because he had to work so hard through 3 quarters.
And we're certainly going to get to LeBron and when he took the shoulder to the head in the first half. But as far, and I'm always one of those that I always want to be careful of saying professional athletes or athletes anywhere and say they're not trying or what was their effort level. But there was a lot of that going on after this one. The Celtics had 20 uncontested shots in the second half. Now, Cleveland's not known for its defense, but still part of defense is want to and hustle. What did you see?
So I would say for third quarter and a lot of the fourth quarter, it wasn't effort, it was just sloppiness. And again, this is why when we sit around and say to you, the regular season matters because it's where you build your defensive habits, where you don't make these mistakes, so that when you get to this point, muscle memory, we know what to do.
And that's been the problem for the Cavs all regular season.
All regular season, and people say you could just turn it on in the playoffs because LeBron's that great. LeBron was right there making mistakes just like everyone else, getting beat on backdoor cuts, on switches, horrible miscommunication. Him and J.R. Smith twice in the game were supposed to hand off. They didn't hand off. They both went with the same guy. The other guy popped out and hit a 3 as a result. And then getting blown by. There were a lot of times, man, Jaylen Brown just went around LeBron James.
Right.
And once that happens, whether he scores or not is irrelevant. It's that you start to put the Cavs defense into rotation, and they're not good at anything more than that first rotation, which is LeBron got beat. I'm here to help. The ball goes out. Wait a second. We got to close out hard over there. And that guy swings to the top of the key, and now no one's there because we're not disciplined enough to handle second rotation, third rotation, like a team like Boston is.
Right,
you do that with Boston,
yeah.
They can scramble and get out, and no one's rotating to. Not only is no one not rotating, they're not rotating to the wrong guy.
So is it deceiving that it's really not lack of hustle? It's just lack of ability.
I thought it was absolutely
cover.
Third quarter, middle of the fourth quarter. I thought it was just lack of execution. You're not good at doing this because you haven't been doing it all year long. And then at some point, when, Boston rattled off a couple, then it looked like they just gave up. It looked like, all right, this game's over.
Right.
As I said, it looked like they got slapped in the face with a fish. It's just like,
you didn't keep bringing that up.
It's the greatest. I once saw a guy pick up a fish and chuck it in somebody else's face, a dead fish.
What?
That's
you
the
saw that
sight.
happen?
Yeah, it's the greatest amount of disrespect I've ever seen. Just picked up a fish and threw it at this guy, hit him right in the face. So after game one, LeBron said he had zero level of concern. Where is his concern level right now as Amin Elhassan is with us?
Well, I think you got to be really concerned when J.R. Smith goes out there and lays a goose egg.
Yeah.
Korver was better. Kevin Love was really good for them. But again, I think if you're the Cavs, there's 2 things you have to address. One is we have to make this easier. So LeBron almost went through what Harden went through the other night, which is ISO, dribble. Like, okay, you're doing great, but this is wearing you down. And by the end of this game, you won't be able to keep up the energy level it takes, to basically overcome. And then the other thing is they've got to get right defensively. And that one, I don't know if they can do. That's one of those things where you can't kind of cram for the final exam the night before. You should have been doing your homework all year long. So for me, it's almost like, no, we got to get the offense right because that's the only chance we have is to just obliterate them from the perimeter and have LeBron pick them apart with his passing, which he did. The crazy thing is there were a bunch of times they had LeBron in the high post, sometimes lifted all over above the 3-point line. And you had Kevin Love and Kyle Korver screen for one another, and Kyle Korver would pop, and Kevin Love slipped to the basket. You had a couple of and ones there. The first play of the game they ran was J.R. Smith on a screen like that. He missed the layup, but Tristan Thompson with the tap in. Those are great offensive sets because it forces Boston's defense to make decisions. Wait, do I stay with him or do I stay with him? Who do you got? Who do I got? There's that misdirection there. Anytime where it's like dribble, pound, Tristan come up, set a screen, that's easy. Because now I know, okay, Jeff Green's here, I'm going to come in to help. And if they kick it out Jeff Green and he makes that 3, God bless him.
Right. Well, we're not going to, we'll give you that one.
We're prepared to give that one because I know what the options are, what I'm giving up, what I'm not. with those screens, those off-ball screens, it's a lot of, wait, do we switch this? Do we not switch this? And there's a lot of, even if you switch it, you get guys who have mismatches and can get guys on their hip. Like, again, Kevin Love got a bunch of post-ups like that.
So less than 4 minutes ago in the half, Tatum runs through LeBron and clean, nothing dirty about it. His shoulder catches LeBron in the jaw, kind of snaps his head a little bit. LeBron down on a knee, makes 1 or 2 free throws. They foul to stop play. He walks to the locker room, come back out, and starts to play. Says it's a neck strain. Mm-hmm. What did you see? What did you think? Do you think the right protocol was followed?
You know, from our vantage point, we were behind the basket and high, so we just saw LeBron kind of at first I didn't know whether it was a flop or not. Luckily, I had my iPad open and we had the game streaming on the ESPN app, which you can download right now.
Yes,
watch all your favorite coverage.
Hold on, nicely done.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
And so on the replay, we saw, oh no, that wasn't just kind of a flop. Right in the jaw. It was like a punch. Like you got punched. And went to the locker room and came back, and everyone said, man, if he went through concussion protocol, that was the quickest concussion protocol ever. Yeah. But to his credit, I didn't feel like he was out of sorts in terms of not there. He had a great pass to Tristan Thompson out of a pick and roll where he slipped the pass between 3 different people. I mean, if he had a concussion, he was doing some things that, a guy with his bell rung theoretically should not be able to do, but then again, it's LeBron James.
Did he look different in the second half to you, though, than the first half?
Because he didn't go to the rim as much.
He looked tired. I don't think he looked out of sorts, like, where am I? I think he just looked tired, like, oh, man, I don't want to do. A lot of those jump shots were just like, I'm not going to go through all that. I just want to get this up.
Okay, so Amin Elhassan is with us. We're recruiting him to be on the Family Feud side.
Yes, we are.
We play the Levitard show. We just played Bretymology, which is our version of Researcher Brett. Oh, he doesn't have it.
We can't do it.
No, I don't have
it. Okay. All right, we're going to
have to talk about Western Conference in game 2.
All right, well, let's do that instead. Okay, so if the Rockets win tonight, what chance do you give them still to take 3 more from the Warriors, who have lost 2 games when Steph Curry and Kevin Durant in the postseason are together?
Yeah.
I mean, right? That's it.
They've lost, it's in 2 years, they've lost 2 games with those guys both on the floor, and then 1 more if Steph hasn't been out there. I mean, again, anything can happen, and that's why we play the game and all those other cliches.
I think whenever you start with anything can happen, we know where this is going.
Yeah.
I mean, look, here's the thing, because, particularly I think listeners who are familiar with me are always going to point to 2016, because I was saying meteor, alien abduction, that's the only way they're going to lose. But, there is a set of circumstances where the sun and the moon and stars all align. Steph Curry's not 100%. Draymond Green is ejected, suspended.
Right.
Bogut is hurt for the rest of the series. Andre Iguodala pulls his back. Harrison Barnes is on a milk carton for 7 straight games.
Right.
And then LeBron makes the greatest defensive play of all time.
Right.
Kyrie hits one of the biggest shots of all time. And then you have a Kevin Love, Steph Curry ISO, and Kevin Love gets a stop on that. If I told you, hey man, you think all those things could happen within the span of like 3 games or so? No, come on. That's way too much. It's a what if. But it happened.
Right.
And what happened, because Cleveland was, with all those circumstances on the Golden State side happening, they were good enough to take advantage. And I'll say the same thing about Houston. If the circumstances line up where Golden State's vulnerable, Houston is a team that's good enough to take advantage. Now, the next part is, do I think those circumstances are going to line up? Probably not.
So when all is said and done in the NBA Finals, how many games does it take for Golden State to beat Boston?
That's a good question. I'm giving this away. I shouldn't do this, but I did this in January. I wrote down on a piece of paper because I made a bet with one of the producers.
Really?
On the jump, Steve Martinez, who was adamant that I was crazy, and I said the Warriors won't drop more than 1 game in any of their series on the way to the championship. He said, "You're nuts."
Yeah.
And everyone, Houston, everyone.
Yeah.
And now everyone's like, that might actually
looking pretty good.
That paper might make it on TV this year.
Yeah.
So.
The force is strong with you, my friend.
Yeah.
Nicely done. Amin Elhassan, our NBA front office insider, who we are actively recruiting and stealing from the Levitard show. That's just the way this goes. We're
bidding war.
Golic and Wingo.
Let's not expect too much. There's only one person out there that's expecting way too much out of this guy too early. We know who that is. It's his father.
Golic and Wingo with you on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. Okay, so the big story, I think no matter what happens in sports, well, you never know what can happen the next 2 days, but the biggest story over the last 3 days has been the Supreme Court decision to allow sports gambling in every state, just not Nevada. And every commissioner of every sport is trying to figure out their way to deal with it. No one has been more progressive on that front than NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, who in his tenure as the NBA commissioner has been progressive on everything.
Yes, he has.
Whether it comes to players and the social issues that they speak out on, putting advertising on uniforms, that people absolutely flipped out over.
Yeah, they did.
Which I could not understand.
Oh, I mean, look at what goes on in soccer around the world, in racing,
international basketball.
I mean, it's everywhere, and now it's here in the NBA. And as I said, you'll get used to it and get used to it more because you can make a dime on it. Go ahead and make a dime on it, and you'll get used to looking at it and playing. It'll be just kind of there to you.
I mean, people's heads were exploding over that. I never understood why that was such a huge deal. So now everyone is trying to navigate this way of now that there is the potential. We know that several states, including New Jersey, who want to have their books up and running by the NBA Finals, by the way, they're trying to figure out how do we do this? How do we get, most importantly, they're figuring out, air quotes, how do we keep the integrity of our league?
Right.
But really, air quotes, how do we get money?
How do we make a dime on this thing?
Exactly. So this is NBA Commissioner Adam Silver. By the way, there is something called the draft lottery.
Yep.
So they've sort of embraced this for a long, long time. This is Adam Silver talking about with Cassidy Hubbard at the draft lottery last night, speaking to our Cassidy Hubbard about what this means with sports gambling going forward, specifically with the NBA.
So the next move is to work both on a federal level to try to get Congress to adopt a national framework. That would be our preference. The NFL has said the same thing publicly, and we think there should be a common sort of framework that for all states and then allow states to opt in or not, because of course we operate in 50 states and it concerns us a little bit to have a hodgepodge of regulations, but if that's what it's going to be, that's fine. And of course sports betting is already legal in Nevada. It's legal outside the United States in many jurisdictions, so it's not completely new to us, but I think in terms of the integrity of the league, which is paramount, we're going to have to take a fresh look at everything we do and just make sure everything's completely covered, how we disclose information, how referees are assigned. I mean, things we deal with already, but we realize there'll be even that much more scrutiny on everything that happens around the league.
There will be scrutiny. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
Turn your mic on. You are a professional.
Not really.
Yeah. Listen, NBA and NFL are kind of coming at it from two separate ways to a common goal.
Yes.
NFL has been fighting this. They don't want it. NBA, Adam Silver said, listen, it's going to happen. We're going to embrace it.
And we want our 1%.
But now they want to embrace it, as Adam said, the same way the NFL does. They want basically a governing body.
Right.
They don't want to have to deal with, if it's 50 states, the talk is maybe 32 states in 5 years, whatever it is, say 50 states and 50 different set of rules, right?
Right.
To go with that. Let's get a universal set of rules and let's go there. If you have to deal with the states individually, believe me, they're going to do it. So now that's exactly it. There are so many tentacles to this thing from now until God knows when, which includes networks like our own, to obviously casinos, to what Vegas has done, to what all the other states are going to do. What are they going to model them after? But the bottom line is exactly what you said. How can you get your money? And I thought it interesting when Adam Silver said what kind of information we give out there. That's their leverage. That is how these leagues, unless states just want to work with them and say, you know what, we feel it's best to be in bed with the teams that we can bet on. Remember, in New Jersey, if you're in there, you can't bet on any of the local colleges and such that are in state there. But pro is a different game. So maybe some states will say, you know what, we want to get in bed with the professional sports, so we'll go ahead and work out a deal. Others are going to say, listen, Nevada's never given you guys a dime. Why the hell are we giving you a dime? So when you start talking about information, that's what leagues are talking about, because that's what leagues it's all about leverage. What can the leagues say to the casinos that says you should give us money? It's because what can we withhold from you that we're giving out now? What can we withhold from you that you need desperately from us that will let you give us a piece of the pie?
Look, essentially what we have here are two separate issues. First and foremost, everything that's being said either from gaming commissions or states or the leagues is now negotiating. That's what they're doing. They're all negotiating before they actually have to figure out, are we going to go to battle over this, over a lawsuit? The other thing is, do we think that there's going to be Congress? I mean, not the greatest track record on getting stuff done. Okay. And we just had the Supreme Court strike down an overriding federal law for all states. So basically the Supreme Court just said, hey, states, figure it out on your own. You can if you want to, or you don't have to. Now, both the league, the NBA and the NFL are saying, we want there to be a federal law in place. Well, there was a federal law in place, and the Supreme Court said, yeah, probably not so much. Yeah. Now, I get it, that was from a ban, but do you really want the federal law to cover everybody? Because it sounds like from the Supreme Court ruling, they basically said, hey, states, do whatever you want.
Yeah, we're going to overturn
And that's the exact opposite of saying we're going to have a new legislation that covers everybody.
Yeah.
So what do you think is more likely to happen?
Does
Congress really want to wait in here? Do they really want to do that?
Well, it depends. Are we close to election time, or
we got midterms coming up in November? Do
they want to be? They want to be. And I'm serious.
Yeah.
Do they want to be headlining?
Yeah.
If they want to be headlining, they'll get involved in this. I mean, let's not act like we haven't seen that before. If they want a little publicity, then maybe you will see that. You know what else is going to be interesting to me is because the professional leagues are going after the dime.
Yeah. Of course they are.
What college?
Yeah.
How about the NCAA?
Well, the NCAA
I don't mean
really
individual schools.
Yeah.
Well, what's the NCAA going to do if all this is going to happen? It looks like it's going to happen. Does the NCAA as an entity try and do exactly what the NBA is going to be doing, what the NFL is going to be doing, what baseball and hockey are going to be doing, trying to get their piece of the pie? And then the players and every person that's screaming the players are getting screwed and all this are going to say, wow. Yeah. Another revenue stream for the NCAA and nothing for us.
I think it would be absolutely certain to look at this at the NCAA is going to try. I mean, look, the's a reason
Why wouldn't
they pay billions of dollars for the television.
Why
rights,
would
okay?
I would if I were them?
They're not giving anything out for free either.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go down that road pretty easily.
Yeah.
That the NCAA also wants their share of the pie as this thing plays out. But look. It's going to happen. The question then becomes, do we really believe that a federal law is going to try and legislate this thing again when the Supreme Court just said, hey, states, figure it out on your own?
This has been the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast. You can listen or subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, or just ask your smart speaker to play Golic and Wingo. Plus, you can check the guys out live weekday mornings from 6 to 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN News.